Have you ever wanted a game where you played as a vampire? What about one where you played as the Grim Reaper? Well, what about one where you played as both? That's how I assume the Crystal Dynamics product pitch to Eidos went in 1997, and that leads us directly to today, 27 years later, with the remaster of both Soul Reaver games. Before we jump in, I just wanted to mention a couple things. One, this is not a review, this is a preview or a first impressions. I've only played through the first couple hours of Soul Reaver 1, and I really just launched Soul Reaver 2 just to make sure it worked correctly. And the second thing I wanted to mention is that Sandbox Strategies provided me a key for this game. I'm under no obligations, and receiving the key has not impacted my opinion of the game. And with that out of the way, hey, I'm AlaskanBeard, and today I'm going to be giving you my first impressions of Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remastered. And that first impression is that that's a mouthful. Jokes aside, this remaster is the first Legacy of Kain media we've gotten since 2010, when Kain and Raziel were playable characters in the Lara Croft mobile game, Guardian of Light. And in my opinion, it's a great entry. Not Guardian of Light, I mean the remaster. It might not be worth the 21-year wait, but it is at least a step in the right direction. So what is this? Well, for $30 you get Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 2, some quality of life changes like a movable camera, and a bunch of extras on your platform of choice, be that current gen, last gen, or PC. So let's look at them one by one, starting with the extras. I absolutely love extras in games. The Insomniac Museum might be one of my favorites, and the extras in Soul Reaver Remastered are no different, and it seems like Aspyr put in some real effort, though it is worth mentioning not all of this is new. Some of these extras, not all of them, were included as part of Soul Reaver 2. Anyways, there's tons of art in the extras, from fan art to cosplay to concept art, which is one of my personal favorites, to renders. There's a music player that lets you listen to soundtracks for both games. There are 4 lost levels in various states of playability. There's an interactive lore map, which is really fucking cool. There are bonus videos, including outtakes of the voice cast and demo reels for the original game.
The making of Soul Reaver.
Soul Reaver. I feel an obligation to work out since I'm Soul Reaver. So when the time comes I really meet everybody, I'll be able to wear tight black outfits. And they won't feel so terribly disappointed to see that it's the 60-year-old cocker doing this voice.
And there's also a full game script, which they call The Dark Chronicle, which I don't think I've ever seen in a game before, but I thought it was pretty awesome. It's worth noting that this was present in Soul Reaver 2, but I don't think it was in Soul Reaver 1, so I think they created it for Soul Reaver 1, if I'm seeing things correctly. But yeah, cool nonetheless. Obviously, most people aren't buying this game for things like the extras, but I think it shows the care and detail that was put into the remaster as a whole. And as someone who values game preservation, I think it's awesome to have all of these things preserved and easily accessible, at least for now. But enough of the extras, let's talk about the games themselves. First up, we'll talk about Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. Originally released in 1999 for PlayStation, Dreamcast, and PC, Soul Reaver takes place 1500 years after Blood Omen, the first game in the series, and it follows our protagonist Raziel as he works to get vengeance against Kain. There's not a ton I can say about a 25-year-old game that hasn't already been said, so I'll just talk about what's new with the remaster. Obviously, we've got remastered textures, as you'd expect, but Aspyr has made the IMO wise decision to let you toggle between the original and remastered graphics on the fly, a la Halo MCC. While it won't let you relive playing the game on your CRT when you were a wee lad, it's a great addition. The other big change that's been made is you now have a movable camera, something that completely changes the feel of the game, as the original followed Raziel with little control. I did emulate the PS1 title game for a bit just to test it out, and the camera is my favorite change that was made for the remaster. Things definitely felt obtuse and of their time in the original, but the remaster, while it still feels a bit dated because, they haven't updated the controls or mechanics otherwise, it feels so much more playable with a new camera. Aspyr also mentioned they had to create new skyboxes for the game, as the original didn't have any because, you couldn't look up. I do wish they had included an option to toggle between the two different camera modes, like, the semi-fixed camera and then the fully movable camera, but I do think overall this was a change for the positive. Another really positive change, both for convenience and accessibility, is the ability to remap buttons in-game. Obviously, things like Steam Input, which this game uses, have made things easier over the years, but having the ability to change inputs natively in-game is still a great addition. There's also full keyboard support, and surprisingly, it's a pretty decent way to play. I guess it shouldn't be too surprising given that there was an original PC release, but I digress. I ended up testing the game with an Xbox controller, mouse and keyboard, and on my Steam Deck, and I did not have any issues. Before I move on to Soul Reaver 2, there's some smaller changes I wanted to mention. There are now subtitles. You can also skip cutscenes, and there's a photo mode. Now for the last item in the remaster, Soul Reaver 2. Originally released in 2001, Soul Reaver 2 is a direct sequel to the first Soul Reaver, with Raziel continuing his quest for vengeance against Kain, and it's of course the second game in our remaster. Honestly though, there isn't much to say here. The same improvements that were part of Soul Reaver 1, the camera, quality of life changes, photo mode, etc., are also present here. I'll leave Soul Reaver 2 on the background though, because there's a couple things I wanted to touch on before wrapping up. The first thing is that this is currently the only way of playing Soul Reaver 1 on PC without emulation, as the original re-release was removed from Steam in 2021. And while Soul Reaver 2 is still for sale on Steam, it has mixed reviews, many of which cite buggy controls, issues with cutscenes, or the game just flat out crashing. The second thing I wanted to bring up is I don't normally read the terms of service for products. I mean, I'm human, and I don't usually like to go through 47 pages of legalese before I can play my game, but whenever I'm recommending or reviewing a product, I try to. Normally, there's nothing that stands out to me, but this part of the terms of service stood out to me this time. It's regarding modding, and the section up on screen says, Aspyr Media reserves the right to remove any mods which it determines to be in sole discretion in violation of this agreement or any applicable law or offensive, inappropriate, or otherwise objectionable. That's the first part, and that all seems fine to me. The second part, though, by submitting mods to Aspyr Media, you grant Aspyr Media a worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free, fully paid, sub-licensable, and transferable license to use, reproduce, distribute, create derivative works of, publicly perform, publicly display, digitally perform, make, have made, sell, offer, for sale, and import your mods in whole or in part for any purpose in any form, media, or technology, now known or hereafter developed anywhere in the world in perpetuity. Now, I'm absolutely not a lawyer, but it sounds to me like any mods that you were to create for the game could be used however Aspyr Media wants, which would include being sold as is or published as part of the game or DLC or whatever, presumably without credit. And just because this is in the terms of service doesn't mean it's something that's going to happen, but as Gamers Nexus said recently, it's about what you can enforce. And it seems to me that they could definitely enforce that. And I don't think that's okay. Mods are usually a work of passion done by a community and usually published for free for that community, and for the developer slash publisher of a game to be able to take those mods that the community has made and repackage them and sell them for their own gain. Again, it doesn't say anything about any kind of credit or anything else. It to me, again, not a lawyer, reads like you're giving up all of your rights to any mods that you create for the game. It's a very slippery slope, and it seems like, we started up at the top with Bethesda charging for horse armor, as everybody likes to cite, and then you go into paid mods for the game, and then I think towards the bottom of the slope you start getting to the point where developers and publishers are effectively stealing work from mod creators. It's not, air quotes, stealing, again, not a lawyer, because of the terms of service and the way that they're written, but that is effectively what it is. So I just wanted to point that out as part of my first impressions. It's kind of sucks to end on a low note, but I really did think it was important to bring this up. So setting all that aside, if you can, this is otherwise a good remaster. It's not entirely faithful to the original because it doesn't include an original camera mode, but it's otherwise a solid package. Both games, Soul Reaver 1 and 2, being available for purchase and in a playable state, obviously, as I mentioned before, can't be taken for granted, and the extras that are included are genuinely cool. And I think this is going to be a great way to play the game either for your first or your 20th time. I've been AlaskanBeard, and if you want to see or hear more of me, I stream a few times a week on Twitch, and you can also check out my other socials linked below. I hope you're doing well, and if you aren't, just know that tomorrow and every day after that is a new day and a chance for things to turn around. Till next time, peace.